Hey, this is Alex, and welcome back to another episode of Lipstick and Liberation, a podcast from the perspective of a Black woman with a feminist take. Tonight, we are going to be talking about season 5 of You, one of my favorite shows. Netflix did such a great job in creating the show. I've watched it from season 1. It was originally on Lifetime, and then Netflix picked it up because it got canceled. And really, the show has been a roller coaster. It is about a person named Joe Goldberg and his obsession with women, which he turns out to be an abuser and a serial unaliver. And once Joe gets into killing, stalking these women, the show goes to a lot of different locations. They were in LA, started on New York, LA, London was season 4, and then they finally came back to New York for the conclusion of the show. And the show is really, really popular. I mean, if you've been on Twitter and in those communities, you've seen a lot of people talking about it, I'm sure. So I don't want to recap the full series just for the sake of time. I really like to talk about season 5. I really feel like season 5 was for the domestic violence girlies, for the people who have survived that kind of experience. And it gave a kind of closure, I think, that a lot of people may not have been expecting. But the discourse about this show has been really, really interesting. A lot of women have been reacting on Twitter negatively to the love interest this season, Bronte, saying that she was not attractive enough for Joe Goldberg, our resident serial killer. Now, what I find disturbing about that is that who cares what his next potential victim looks like, guys? Like, Joe Goldberg is not a good person. Joe Goldberg is going through all of these different seasons and unaliving his different love interests. And we saw with season 1 with him unaliving Beck, a lot of people had negative things to say about her because she was a messy character. But I think that's something that Netflix was intentional about, or Lifetime, moving into Netflix, because like I said, season 1, it was Lifetime. But I think that's intentional. I think people forget that domestic violence victims are not perfect. These people are not going to be neat and nice and tidy. And Beck was not neat, nice, and tidy. I didn't even really like Beck. But Beck was young. Beck was trying to learn her way through life. And Beck cheated on Joe during their relationship. She was super duper messy. She got rid of him, then she wanted him back. And people felt like, okay, well, she deserved what she got in the end from Joe, which of course is ridiculous because in the end, he unalives her. He puts her in a cage because the person that was his caretaker who owned the bookstore, Mr. Mooney, would put him in a cage when he misbehaves. So he put her in a cage to basically make her see that she needs to be with him and to correct her behavior. But then she ends up discovering that he was the person who unalived all of her friends and finds his box of basically murder souvenirs. And so he puts her into the cage and he ends up unaliving her. And a lot of people had a problem with that. They talked about how she deserved it because, she was not a good partner to him. And it's disturbing. And then you move to season 2, where I noticed a lot of women, and it seemed like it was a lot of the white women viewers latched on to the Love character, who was a person who turned out to also be an unaliver along with Joe. I don't know why people liked Love. I mean, she was interesting to watch for sure. I enjoyed that season 2 and 3. Season 3 is my favorite series, and that's when they were married. But what bothers me about the way that white women connected to Love is that a lot of them felt like that was Joe's best match and that they wanted her to continue on the show. And it's like, ladies, this is a woman killing other women in order to stay with this guy who doesn't even want to be with her. Joe does not like Love. Joe dislikes Love so much because Love reminds Joe of who he is. And that's something else I think Netflix did a great job of building into this show, is that Joe, being an abuser to the extreme, he does not like himself. He has to fantasize that he is this hero, this white knight that's coming in to save these women. And he's not. He's literally ruining their lives. He's going after them, stalking them, and manipulating them into falling in love with him. And then eventually, when they don't live up to his standard, he's killing them. So to see white women latch on to Love, who is a pick-me, Love Quinn Goldberg is a pick-me. She wants to be with Joe so badly that she's willing to unalive other women that get in the way of that, even though Joe cannot stand her. And I just never got why they were so attached to that character, except that the actress was really pretty. But I think those things also bothered Penn Badgley, the way women were saying they wanted to be stalked and put in cages. And then the way where people were responding to the Love character saying, oh, she matched Joe's freak. And it got obsessive. It got to the point where every season the Love fans were like, oh, where's Love? Why isn't Love on here? Joe shouldn't have killed her. Joe should have been the person who died in season 3. And then it should have continued with her point of view. Like, nobody cares about Love's point of view. Love is not a good person. Nobody cares about what Love is doing as in regards to killing people, because the only reason she's killing other people is to get a man. And that's not interesting. It really isn't. So with season 5, Joe has come full circle. Now Joe, if you remember with Love, Joe really didn't like one thing about Love, which was that she was very messy. She would kill people, but she wouldn't think things through. Joe was very calculated because Joe was poor. So Joe knew that his mistakes could come back to bite him in the behind. But Love was so used to having money to clean up her mistakes that she never even considered this. So season 5, Joe kind of gets put in that situation. He marries a very wealthy woman, a billionaire named Kate, in season 4 in England. She helps him clean up a few of the murders that he told her about, because he tells her a little bit about his life, enough to get her to do what he wants, of course. And she doesn't know about all these other things he's done. But she cleans things up for him. They move to America, and now Joe has all this money and privilege. And one of the things I think that the people who complain about Love not being in season 5 is that they didn't get, is that I think that they made Joe like Love this season. Joe became messy. Kate did not want him to kill people. She did cut him loose to have him kill her uncle, who was trying to get her kicked off of the board of her company. And then she felt bad for it. And she was like, you know what? We don't need to be doing that anymore. I don't want that to be who we are. And this is where it really shows how Joe's pathology is. Joe really doesn't care about making these women happy. Joe cares about controlling them. So when a woman tells him, hey, I prefer you don't kill people for me, he still wants to do it. He still makes it up in his mind that that's what's best for her. And he's going to go out and do what he has to do anyway. She specifically tells him to leave her sisters alone. And he ends up kidnapping her twin sister, the wrong one of the twins, locking her in a cage and creating a huge mess. And the entire time he starts to blame Kate for not being in love with him and not accepting him. And he ends up having a relationship with a girl working in this bookstore who turns out to be a woman who is actually well aware of who he is and is trying to bring him down. So Joe sees himself as this white knight. Oh, I'm doing Kate a favor. But Kate didn't ask you to do that. That's like one of the things about him is that he doesn't listen to the women in his life. He decides what's best for them and he just does it. And he doesn't care what they think. He doesn't care what they approve of. He's going to do what he thinks is best. And then he gets angry when they reject him for not seeing it his way. Well, this was the best way to do it. So in essence, Joe becomes Love this season. He basically becomes the partner that his other partner disapproves of. And he doesn't like that. He also becomes very passionate and very sloppy this season because he's so used to Kate's money cleaning everything up. Eventually, Joe is caught. He tries to get away with everything he did, even to the point where he goes back on his deals with other people. And then finally, Bronte, who is the girlfriend of this season, his main obsession, she kind of flip-flops on Joe. And there's this great scene where Marianne, who was one of Joe's victims, who actually got away, which shout out to you because they never had Joe body a black person on this series. And I love the writers for that. Like, all his black girlfriends got away. Marianne was the most recent one. She comes back to tell Joe off when he's in the cage, when they're getting ready to off him. Like, Kate gets one of the ladies that they put in prison for one of Joe's crimes, Nadia, out. And they all come together. They're planning on killing Joe. But of course, he's got a key stitched in his arm. Him and these keys, man, like he killed me with that. Like when I saw he had that key stitched in his arm, I got so angry. I was like, oh my God, like, anyway, so Marianne talks to Bronte when she comes back because Bronte is starting to question whether or not Joe is really a killer. And this was irritating to a lot of viewers, but I understand it as a domestic violence survivor because sometimes people can know that somebody's bad. People can know that somebody is dangerous, and then they witness something that makes them feel like maybe they misunderstood them. So Joe ends up killing one of the people that's helping bring him down. And she thinks he did it in defense of her. So she starts feeling like, well, maybe we've got the wrong idea about Joe. Maybe he's really not even this bad person after all. And so she starts going back on it. And Marianne gives her this monologue that's so beautiful. And like I said, I think the girlies who have survived domestic violence will really resonate with it, where she basically says, like, you think that this person is who you want them to be because you can't possibly be so stupid as to fall for somebody and have them turn out to be a monster, because that's what we all think. Essentially, we all think we are better than other women who have experienced domestic violence. Even the ones of us who were in it, we all thought that at one point. Our boyfriend, husband, whatever, cannot be a domestic abuser because I wouldn't fall for him. Of course, there's people who have a lot of trauma who are attracted to those people, but people who have high self-esteem get with people like this. They are so manipulative. They are good at getting with people and breaking them down. And that's one of their strengths, unfortunately, is the belief that they can't be bad because we wouldn't be with a person like that. So I really loved that speech that she gave. And anyway, Bronte ends up deciding she wants to take Joe down for herself. I wanted you to end with Joe dying because Joe killed a lot of women over this series. And, you know, as a feminist, it got hard to watch after a while. Like, it was like, man, like he just went season after season after season getting away with killing women. And it was hard. So I really wanted him to be punished. I had hoped that he would be put in the ground, but I really liked the conclusion that Netflix chose for him. He ended up going to prison after getting his penis shot off, which, I mean, that's a great ending for somebody that used their sexuality and their power and their ability to stalk people, to seduce women, to then unalive them when they turned out to be what they felt was imperfect and not their one true love, which is how Joe looked at things. So I was happy that he did go to prison and pay for his crimes. And I love that Netflix ended the series with the women being the people that brought him down. There was women who are part of an online community that helped bring him down. There was Bronte, who obviously was the main person who brought him down and shot his appendage off. And she talked about how if you're still alive, you got a chance. If you and that's things survivors need to hear. If you're still alive, you got a chance to get away from this monster and start a new life. You do have that chance. And I love that the show built that in there. I love that they prioritized making the women the people that brought him down. I did not like Kate season 4. She just was kind of bland for me. I think that whole season was kind of bland. I don't even like how they split it in half. But season 5, oh my God, she was amazing season 5. I love how she came back. I love that she ended up having Henry in the end, that they made it a point to say that Henry doesn't have to turn out like his parents did, Love and Joe, who are his biological parents. Henry can choose to be the kind of man he wants to be. I think that's so important. I think it's so important for people to know that, like, boys have choices. They have the opportunity to become something else, and they don't have to be who their father was. If their father was abusive, you don't have to do that. You can make a choice. And so I loved that. I really, really did. I loved the character Teddy getting to be, you know, he was the illegitimate black brother of Kate, getting to run the company. And then he was gay, and him and his husband became the figures in Henry's life for what masculinity was. And Henry had 2 gay dads when Joe left the country. He left him with 2 gay dads in season 3. So I think it was poetic how that ended up being the case, that was his example of masculinity in the end. So I was very happy with how the show turned out. I don't understand the people who disliked it. And I think that some of the discourse online has been really disheartening as a feminist to see that so many people, like I said, are so sympathetic towards Love Quinn when Love Quinn was an unaliver of women in order to impress this man, Joe Goldberg, who he really couldn't care about her. He really thought she was the scum of the earth, even though she was just like him. The only reason he stayed with Love is because he didn't want her raising his son, which is hilarious because obviously he's a violent killer too. But so many women going out and saying that they just wanted this character back, this character who did nothing but unalive women to get Joe's approval is, no, ladies. Let's leave Love Quinn dead. I'm glad that she's gone. She should have stayed gone after season 3. I'm glad that Joe's in prison. And I'm glad that the show ended with Joe blaming us, because That's so important for people to remember about domestic abusers and men with these pathologies. They never take accountability for what they do. When so many people tell you, oh, well, we should forgive men or give them another chance, before they even apologize for what they did, before they even acknowledge or seek treatment for what they did, people want to foist forgiveness on men automatically. And this is part of what, again, continues the cycle of abuse, having to forgive all the time rather than having a person have to take accountability. And the show showed, no matter what, Joe went through a trial. Joe knows he killed all these people. Joe knows every single thing he did, he lived it. But in his mind, he justified every single action. He doesn't feel guilty. So he ends the show saying, maybe it's us that are the problem. And that, like I said, is so poetic, because that's exactly what an abuser would think if they finally got caught and went to prison. And there's ultimately something so cathartic as a domestic violence survivor, seeing an abuser go to prison, seeing an abuser be held accountable. So I truly enjoyed the ending of the show. I really wish, like I said, as I'm engaging in more discourse and stuff in Twitter, that more women would engage with this show a little bit more maturely and understand what this show was trying to say, because it really does feel like, and maybe this is why Penn wanted this show to end too, a lot of y'all are so focused on the character, like borderline obsessed with Joe Goldberg and then his love life with Love Quinn. You're missing the big picture here. Like, this guy was an entertaining show and a very interesting show. And I honestly think if you don't have a concept of what domestic violence is and how somebody can get swept up into relationships with people like this show is a great way to see how that happens and how they're so good at manipulating people and getting them to fall in love with them and then slowly devaluing them and discarding them. So it's a great show to learn about that. But you shouldn't be walking away from this show idealizing Joe, idealizing Love Quinn. Like, enjoy them as characters, have a great time watching the show, but understand that these are not great people and they deserve to not be here or be in prison. So I'm very happy with it. Wishing Penn Badgley the best. He gave a great performance. Everybody was so good. Anna Camp was excellent as the twins, Maddie and Reagan. There's so much I could go on about, but you guys know I try to keep these podcasts to a minimum so people can enjoy them on a drive. So definitely check out You Season 5 and watch 1 through 5. Like, I want to binge the whole series again. It was amazing. But remember how we're engaging in this. Remember that Joe Goldberg is an unaliver of women, Love Quinn Goldberg, a pick-me unaliver of women, excuse me. And they don't deserve to live on. Great, entertaining characters, but I'm glad it's over. Thank you, Netflix, for such an amazing show. Thank you for an amazing and satisfying ending that empowered women. And I cannot wait to see what you guys come out with next.